It's Matty Fresh on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate. Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and balling like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
And welcome back to Booze, Bets, and Ball, Penn State football podcast brought to you by Big Banter Sports. Well, the regular season's over, and thankfully for Penn State, it ended on, I guess, somewhat of a high note as they took care of Michigan State 42-0 in, I would say, considering it was a Big Ten opponent and the way both sides of the ball played, it was probably the most satisfying game of the year. But obviously, you know, once you lose two games, there's some wind out of the sails. But I thought Drew Aller looked good, and the co-offensive coordinators used Nick Singleton well out in space. They used Katron Allen between the tackles, and they brought in Bo Prabula, the backup quarterback, when it made sense on the goal line, and it resulted in 2 touchdowns. So overall, I thought that was maybe the best called game of the year. I know, like, Michigan State's really bad, 4-8, new coach in there. But, Nate, I thought that was a pretty quality win despite, you know, the opponent and all that.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Of course, I tweeted this a bunch that, yes, Michigan State sucks and, you know, they're terrible defense and stuff. But at the same time, Penn State absolutely dominated them and had more rushing yards than they did all year, 283. The next closest game was UMass at 246, 215 against Iowa. Only the second 300-yard passing game of this season behind West Virginia. So sandwiching, sadly, the best 2 passing games at the beginning and the end of the year. And generated 8.8 yards per play, which is a season high. So you can't ask for much more than that. The defense held them to, I believe, like negative 40-ish rushing yards, absolutely dominated. So, yeah, Michigan State sucks, but at the same time, we've lost to inferior Michigan State teams before, and they didn't have that kind of letdown, and it was a very satisfying way to go out for the regular season, at least.
Yeah, and, you know, that's kind of been something the past 2 years that has become evident, what you kind of brought up there, where in years past, they've, you know, struggled with an inferior Michigan State team and have lost them multiple times. Penn State is kind of beyond that point where the teams they are better than, they are finally just killing pretty much week in, week out, and there's not a lot of sweats. I know Indiana this year was a sweat, but, you know, outside of that, like, and Purdue at the beginning of the 2022 season was a sweat. But other than that, like, every other team they were supposed to beat, they pretty much dominated. It's just they still can't get over the hump to be, you know, to beat someone better than them. But I think, as, you know, disappointing as some people will find this season, and there definitely is some disappointment in that, there is kind of a showing of positivity or building, if you want to say it, in the fact that they no longer have those clunker games that, you know, even 2017 with Saquon and them, those games showed up.
Yeah, the closest win was, like you said, Indiana. That was a 9-point win, so still, you know, over a touchdown. And then outside of that, what's the minimum then? I guess 17 against Illinois was the next closest victory that they had. So, yeah, losing the 2 to Ohio State and Michigan really sucks, but, you know, they bounced back well. Indiana was a little bit scary for a bit, but I think in years past they would have lost that game. And, like, there's a very, very significant tier certainly between Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten, and then there's a fairly good drop-off to Penn State, I guess, still. But then from Penn State to the rest of the Big Ten is probably a bigger chasm even than, you know, between the top 2 and Penn State. So, like, they have absolutely put themselves in a different spot in the conference, at least going into next year, and just kind of need to get over the hump still against Michigan and Ohio State, which is a terrible struggle.
Yeah, so we had the before the championship games this upcoming weekend, we had the college football playoff rankings show drop tonight. Penn State came in at 10. So they're in position for a New Year's 6 game. They'd still need, like, some help in a sense where teams like Iowa and Oklahoma State can't come from behind Penn State in the rankings and win their conference, because then I know a lot of people are saying there's not automatic qualifiers this year with the New Year's Six games, but I saw some people say there still is. So I don't know if there's some gray area there, but that would kind of be the only way they don't make it is if they do get upset. So that would be, 5 New Year's Six appearances in 8 years, which pretty much, I know they had a losing record in the COVID season, but bowl games were weird that year anyway. So it's pretty much 5 and 7 that they've made a New Year's Six game. So, it's not nothing, but I think that people are kind of over that at this point and ready for the next step.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting too. Like 3-1 in those games right now, right? In the New Year's Six games, the only loss was the 2017 or 2016, whatever, Rose Bowl. James Franklin has a better record in those in New Year's Six bowls than in non-New Year's Six bowls with Penn State, where I guess they are, if my memory serves me, they'd be 1-2. So pretty impressive that way. And like we talked, for all the talk about how he doesn't win big games, the New Year's Six tend to be the biggest ones outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and has performed pretty well. Like you said, I mean the rankings now, if Iowa, is as crappy as it would be, because if Iowa beat Michigan, it would put Penn State, I guess, in the Citrus Bowl or whatever. Seeing Iowa beat Michigan and Louisville beat Florida State and Oklahoma State beat Texas, maybe an Alabama win, and whatever happens in the Pac-12 would just be the funniest thing that could happen.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the end of the regular season, so we'll wait to see how this weekend shakes out and get into a possible bowl matchup whenever we find out what that is, which I guess would be next Sunday, right? Yeah. They do the playoff, the 4 teams in the playoff at like noon, and then the rest of the bowl games come out at 6 or something like that. If I think that's what the schedule was last year anyway, but we'll get into that obviously when it arises. But I know we wanted to look back a little bit more on this season. So I know Tyler had some thoughts on what went down this year. So I'm going to let him take over for a little bit, and he could handle the conversation from here.
The whole thing.
Well, what did I say? Thanks for having me back. I know it's been a little bit of a hiatus for me, but as we start this State of the Union, just want to address like how to take a little break. My mental health wasn't all that great, and another 10-2 season was coming for Penn State, so we needed this break, or else this show would have got kicked off the internet. So
yeah, probably.
Glad I'm back, but thanks for filling in while I was gone. But man, what can we say? What another fucking disappointing season.
Hang on, hey, you got to shout out Ricky for filling in before.
Oh yeah, shout out Ricky. Yeah. We don't have the best history, but thank you for filling in.
Ricky the Shoe.
Yeah, the shoe. But holy hell, guys, are we ever gonna fucking get over 10-2?
I don't think so.
This is getting out of hand. This is just, Alec. I know you were at the Ohio State game when I was there. I mean, we were all at Michigan. It's just those games were the worst fucking games I've ever watched. It was like watching paint dry.
It was on offense, yeah.
Literally, like there's just never a moment where you're like, oh, we're gonna get blown out, but there's no chance in hell we're winning this game. Like it was just sitting there watching, like, is the definition of insanity. It's the same shit over and over again, expecting different results. And you know what? Fuck Mike Yurcich. Thought that guy was gonna be a great hire. Nope. I hope he never steps another foot in State College the rest of his life, unless it's on like Temple's sideline. Like this is unreal. That dude single-handedly derailed this entire season by being a fucking moron all year. Also, what the hell's up with Nick Singleton most of the year? I'm not seeing a fucking hole anywhere. And then you go to the last fucking game against Michigan State, and holy hell, the dude looks like he's an All-American. It just blows my mind there. What else I got?
But I think some of that too, like, look, you can keep going, but some of that is how they schemed him and where
100%.
So like that still falls back to Mike Yurcich, right?
Oh, 1,000%. Cannot agree more with that. But at some point too, when you're that good of a fucking athlete, you got to look at him and be like, dude, this is what I do best. Give me the ball on the edge, and I'm gonna make one man miss, and I'm gonna go 60 yards down the sideline. Like at some point, you got to advocate for yourself there and just be like, hey, this is what I need. If you want me to succeed in this offense, do this for me. But I completely agree. Back to Mike Yurcich, hate the guy. Hate him. And then lastly, I mean, James Franklin, you got to figure it the fuck out, man. Same shit, different year. 10-2. It's the James Franklin special. You're always talking about fans give their all, do all this shit. Motherfucker, I was getting up on 1 hour of sleep for Ohio State, Michigan, all these noon games. I was out there tailgating my ass off so I could be the drunk asshole in the stands cheering you on when you're ass kicked by the same teams over and over again. Do something different. I don't care what it is, but this is getting out of hand. I am so tired of watching the same shit every year. It's disappointing. I don't know what to do anymore. I can't be optimistic ever again, I feel like.
No, it kind of,
the worst part is we go out of Michigan State, and if we had one singular play with like that deep shot to Mari Evans, I'm not even like, I don't think I'm exaggerating here. I think if we complete that past the Ohio State game, we win that game. Like we needed one play like that, and I think we win that game.
Well,
they had one play like that.
Right.
It got
On
called
defense.
Back, right?
Yeah.
We do something on offense. Like, oh,
yeah, I know.
It's just that's so frustrating to see the potential this team had all year, and we didn't do shit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, like you didn't comment on this at all, but Manny Diaz deserves a lot of credit. That the defense, the Big Ten media and coaches, all conference teams came out today. It's basically all Penn State on defense, right? All 3 defensive ends made at least
1
the
or
third
2,
team.
I think.
I thought
DDS. Oh, he was 3. Okay.
I thought he was third. Yeah, like the entire secondary
on coaches or something, and then third in media.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing, right? And that kind of spoils it even more because it's not like, you know, sometimes the
we're gonna have here in fucking forever.
Yeah,
like,
I think
that's the worst part.
Defense, it's the best. It's like 2011 Alabama or some shit like
it's
that's the worst part.
Unbelievable. It just blows my mind.
So on that side of it, like, look, I don't want to get blocked by James Franklin like some of you. So like he on that side of the ball, he has hit a home run, getting Manny Diaz here. God hope we can keep him one more year. But yeah, got to figure it out on offense.
You bring up a really good point, Nate, actually. If James Franklin is an offensive guy, offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach with the Packers, you know, the whole 9 yards, blah, blah, blah. His defensive hires, there's rarely a miss. He misses on offensive hires like crazy. Yeah. Like, how many of those receivers coaches do we absolutely hate? You know what I mean? Like, the one, Lime Grover wasn't that good of an offensive line coach. Well, obviously, we see what's going on with all these offensive coordinators. I don't get how an offensive guy is struggling so bad to find like talented assistants put around him on that side of the ball consistently. And then on defense, there hasn't, I can't really name like a miss. Like John Scott was a little underwhelming in recruiting, but you know, like
they'll figure it well.
Yeah, like that like if that's your worst hire, if your worst hire is a guy who now coaches for an NFL team on like that side of the ball.
NFL team.
Yeah, like you know what I mean? Like that's the weird thing to me. Like I don't know how he's struggling so bad with that.
So, do you think because he's an offensive-minded coach, he went out and found an excellent defensive coordinator, and he just lets him do his thing, and he doesn't interfere? Whereas on the offense, people say, right, that he has a lot of handles still in the game plan and in what gets called, and maybe he meddles a little bit too much. And maybe Mike Yurcich was amazing, but he just wasn't given the opportunity.
Mike Yurcich was amazing at fucking Shippensburg University, and then he went to the Big 12 and put up some weird ass numbers with Oklahoma State, and then he hasn't done shit since.
Yeah, and then he got a little too much credit for Justin Fields.
Ohio State, and he wasn't even their OC.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. I thought he was going to be a home run hire. We all did. The media told us, fuck him.
He had Mason Rudolph, right, for 3 years. He had Sam Ehlinger, and he had Justin Fields. So he had really good quarterbacks. So, you know, that.
Yeah, probably they were all, I think maybe at one point you can make the argument, the best quarterback in college, like at their time. Like for at least a little bit. Like, you know, like he always seemed to have the number one dude. Like,
what I don't understand with this dude is if you go back and look at his play designs when he's at Oklahoma State, when he was at Texas, before Penn State, like there was fucking creativity. There was ways to scheme up an open wheel route down the sideline. There was deep crossings over the middle. We didn't do jack shit.
Nah.
So conservative, and it was just so it's so frustrating.
Do you remember the home game against Auburn? they split out the tackle, and they had who was
Mhm.
Yeah, he was running some QB
The
level.
tight end was on the line. Yeah.
tight ends like down the middle, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, he's the greatest play caller ever." And then
Yeah, and Sean Clifford wasn't throwing, balls backwards and, all over the place and stuff. Like,
and that was the highlight of his.
His offense did not set up anything. Like, it was just he was calling a play to call a play. He didn't call a play for any rhyme or reason. It was just like, oh, I want to run this play on this down and distance. I'm going to call it now. He was not setting up the game at all at any point.
Yeah, and you saw that a lot too. Even like that, there was no rhythm to it. Like in
and against inferior opponents, that's going to work because you're just going to be talented and you're going to get those 4-yard gains every play and continue to have first downs. When you play good fucking teams, that's not going to happen.
yeah,
I did like a lot. Like if they promoted Sider this year, I would actually be okay with that because I think there's consistency in the scheme, assuming he's just going to keep the same terminology and everything that Yursich had and just build on it with the personnel that he has, rather than try to bring in a new guy and revamp the whole thing.
Well, they need to revamp the receiver room either way. So.
Well, okay, yeah, the receiver. Sorry, DeAndre Lambert-Smith.
Yeah, we kind of gloss over that. We're 60 minutes in, and we didn't bring that up. But yeah, the transfers didn't really do anything. McLean looked like Devontae Adams the first week of the season, and then he didn't play the rest of the year, so I don't understand that one. Dante Cephas had, 2 good games, the Maryland game, and then a little bit this past weekend. So he has another year. I think he has a 6th year if he wants to take it. I don't know what's going to happen there. Keandre Lambert-Smith has another year if he wants to take it. I don't know what's going to happen there. There's no way all these guys come back. Amari Evans, who caught the deep ball in the last game, I know he's maybe banged up early in the year, but if he was healthy, like the last 6-7 games, and they weren't doing that, he'd probably be out of here. Malik Mega, I don't know. Like we're talking about like a fourth year guy who's like a special teams ace. I'm sorry, but like, can we get different scholarships? Yeah,
like that would be our fucking fundamental receiver out there that we're throwing bubble screens to. Yeah, sure, he's running special teams. He's a great guy. He's a captain. Awesome. We're not a Make-A-Wish Foundation here at Penn State. We're trying to win fucking games.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen there.
They brought
in.
Real quick on this, right? So I think they need experience and they need to revamp it from scratch because the Nate Bauer thing that got leaked out of On 3 that talks about how nobody's in the room and there's no team leadership there and they don't care and kind of stuff like that. That needs a fresh start, right? And I do think it comes down to Hagen's getting their ass in gear a little bit too, but you have to have players that want to be there and want to do the right thing all the time, and it sounds like they don't have that right now. So
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, freshmen, right?
Yeah, they had those 5 kids they brought in the 2022 class. I wouldn't be surprised if none of them are here next year.
Who steps in there? Like, why doesn't someone on the team get a grip of that room? Like, is that Drew? Why is Drew not yelling at those? Like, hey, motherfuckers, get in here and watch some film.
Yeah, that was something that was talked about because you had, like, 2022, you had really vocal guys like Sean, kind of a loudmouth, PJ Musper, same way, Jared Brown, same way. Team got a lot quieter this year. Drew's a very soft-spoken person. Singleton and Allen are very soft-spoken. Keandre Lambert-Smith, like the swagger aspect, but I don't know how much he actually.
That's not a leadership.
Anyone on the team, to be honest. Like, I think he's a talented kid, but I think he's just kind of one of those guys on the team that the guys look at and they're like, why the hell is he here?
And like Olu, like amazing talent, like super smart guy, but I think he's like so smart and so good that a little quiet too. I just don't know where the fire was coming from on this team, and that was a thing.
Theo Johnson, I guess, is the only one we've really seen or heard about.
Yeah, he's the one that you've seen him emotional a lot of times on the sidelines. He's really the only one that there's evidence of. Like, like the 2016 team, a lot of loudmouths on that team, and that's kind of why even though they started 2-2 and got blown out of Michigan, they were able to ride the ship and come back and win the Big Ten. But yeah, I don't know, but I don't know how you change that because you're not going to transfer out the whole freaking roster just to get loudmouths in there. That's kind of come from the coaching staff too, I think. Like I know they say Poindexter's kind of that high energy guy, but maybe you need some more in there. There's some young coaches in there too, like Barnes, Howell, Troutwine. These guys are what, under 33, under 35?
He's had a lot of experience, right? Barnes is kind of the youngest one, and his room seems very good, right? And like bringing in Chop last year, who was already really strong, that seemed to help. Higgins also has experience, right? He was at Virginia for a couple of years, and that room's kind of falling apart a little bit.
So I guess
the only one for me that's really concerning going forward, honestly.
Yeah.
So let's say we do hire Sider as OC. Do you move him to quarterback, or do you keep him at running back and hire a young quarterback coach with promise?
I think that.
I think it would be Danny O'Brien the way Aller's all over him.
You think? See,
because I don't know what you do there.
The talk of the industry and shit is Billy Fessler is going to blow up in a couple of years. Do we take a swing on him now?
I mean,
he's at Akron with Moorhead.
But is he what's his role now?
Quarterback coach.
Okay. So you can't
be too. Might be the OC with it.
No.
I mean,
it'd be too early for him to be the OC, right? I mean,
he's not going to an OC job here, but if he wants to get a pay bump and come back and be a quarterback coach at his alma mater.
Yeah, if they go that route, I think it'd be one of those two. I don't think they're going to go that route.
He is offensive coordinator right now. Yeah.
He is?
Yep. I mean, they suck, but like he is.
Yeah, I don't know how much the offensive coordinator at Akron makes.
Probably they were talking about
300.
Kansas guy making like 500. Kansas is
he makes 1.1, but his buyout 700K.
Kansas OC makes 1.1.
That's what I read. Yeah. So to get him, you got to pay him at least 1.5.
No, he'll take 1.2 to go to a better situation.
He wants for exposure and stuff. But so I was looking. He was the. All right, now we're just going on tangents, but he was the Buffalo guy from 2015 to 2020. But when Leopold was at Buffalo, they scored fewer points when he was there than they did before he was there. So
I don't think there's like a hot name on the market that we're going to go.
Not. So that's why
Snyder's probably going to be the move.
I hope. I kind of hope. Like it's chemistry. It gives him. He's been there a while, right? And again, I just think there's something about the continuity to have these guys that you think next year can be a good year. Like, don't screw it up and bring in a brand new system again. We've seen.
So I guess, what's the rumor that he wasn't even the one calling the plays? Wasn't someone saying it was Howe?
Okay, whoever called the plays.
Yeah, because Howe was in the booth and Sider was on the sideline.
Make them both co-OCs, whatever. Keep it the same way, though.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't know.
And they talk about that dude from UNLV, right? And
the Marion guy.
This is his first year, as an OC. That's pretty dangerous too, I think. And that offense is very strong.
So the talk about bringing back Moorhead is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Let's nip that in the butt right there.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen there. The thing is, with him, if you look at here, Mississippi State, Oregon. He's always had a quarterback that ran for like over 500 yards. That is not going to happen here.
I love Moorhead. He is the sole reason Franklin's still here. He completely rejuvenated the program. He made Penn State football fun again. But, I mean, his stuff just would not work. And I don't know. It's just I don't see him leaving. The whole reason he left was because he wanted his own situation where he can kind of be in charge of a program and be with his family when he wanted to. Plus his son's growing up. He's like a sophomore or junior now in high school with getting looks at. So I don't see him leaving. So let's stop that rumor. Let's talk realistic shit.
Yeah, I think Penn State's recruiting his kid though, which would make it an interesting.
It's not that kind of a level though. He's going to be like a Akron max out, FCS Akron level.
What year is he?
He's a sophomore.
So that's a 26.
Yeah.
Donovan Moorhead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of crazy options. You're not going to get like the Washington offensive coordinator. His next level is head coach. He would not take that move, I don't think. So there's not a lot out there.
You're not going to go get an FCS guy
no,
right? I think it's man. I don't know.
There's the whole ex-head coach thing, with Manny Diaz. You get Dan Mullen. Chip Kelly was almost an option. I don't know. I think Cliff Kingsbury's going to be the Houston head coach. So that's out. But
Yeah, but those kind of guys too, like Manny Diaz, that was his first head coaching gig, right? It was for a few years. You're not going to get Chip Kelly, who was he was an NFL coach at 2 stops, right? And then UCLA. I don't know. And Oregon, like that's such a step down. I think that you're not going to get somebody like that, or
Kingsbury, you're not going to get.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he's got to basically take a chance on an up and comer and just hope he hits it out of the park. And I think you might as well just do that with someone on your staff with Sider.
Yep.
I wasn't for Sider at first, but I've kind of come around to the idea.
Yeah, my thing is I just don't know if he's afraid to hire internally again after Ronnie.
But I mean, if we're being honest, Ronnie really wasn't that bad. He was
the second best out of all of them.
Yeah,
Moorhead was the best, and he's the second best. And again,
was he much worse than Moorhead, or he just didn't have the fucking All Americans that we had and got Barkley with it. Like Barkley made that offense. If Barkley wasn't on that offense, I don't think we all love Moorhead as much as we do. For being completely honest, he made that team right more than it should have been.
And Ronnie made one terrible decision on 4th and 5 against Ohio State, but otherwise was pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, if we're on the Saquon thing, let's be honest. If Saquon was never here, Matt Rule's probably the coach here right now.
Very true.
I don't think that's out of the question. I think that he literally did do a lot for a lot of people. So
if Irv Charles didn't catch that ball against Minnesota, it's like because.
I mean, he was gone. Yeah, Franklin was fired after that game. If we didn't win,
yeah, that would have.
And you see in the basketball team, like as good as it can kind of look for a second, like there's just so much instability when you bring in a new guy, right? And it takes time.
But we can all agree this season fucking sucked. Sure, 10-2 is great, but we expected more.
Yeah, I think and I said this probably. I know I said it after the Ohio State game, and maybe I said after the Michigan game, but. When they were like 10-2, blah blah blah, we need the big time quarterback. Like we need something more than Sean Clifford. That makes you believe 11-1 and like a chance at the playoffs. So then when that changes and you get the 5-star guy and all that, and I'm not blaming this on Drew because he looked handcuffed at times. Sure, he didn't look good at times, but that's gonna happen. But it was the same, and so whatever BS they were feeding on that was obviously wrong, and it's hard to trust them now going forward because a lot of it was just said, we need our guy at quarterback, and they said Drew was the guy, and it was the same freaking record and the same, honestly, worst in a sense, worse outcomes in those games. At least Sean put up some points against Ohio State and at times against Michigan. Like they couldn't even get a first down in either of those games. What, they had 7 combined or something in the 2 of them? Like, so that's what bothers me, and the whole wasted the generational defense where all you needed was pretty much an average offense. You just needed to score 21 points in both those games. You won both of them. So that's the frustrating part is you look back on the defense, you'd be like, damn, they had 3 shutouts and led the country in sacks. Like that's really hard to do. And it's just that's the frustrating part to me. It's just how good the defense was and what we were told about how much the 5-star quarterback could change things.
Yep. And if you go back, if you had Sean Clifford, you probably win one of those games too.
So we say that, and I will fully admit I said that a ton. But the more you think about it, do we really? I mean, Sean had some weapons. Does Drew really have the weapons on the outside that we needed?
I think Clifford had the ability to he was a better scrambler. He was a little better improviser. I think I don't know. I think he was kind of a find a way guy a lot.
I think
2021 against Ohio. What they score against Ohio State in 2021 when like John Lovett
won or something,
like the running back, right?
What was that game?
Here's my quarterback evaluation with it. I think at times Drew is too much of like a drill quarterback in a game. Like he's trying too hard to be that perfect quarterback where he's hitting in that exact spot on like the timing and everything on the outside. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like the syncing up with the routes and the throwing and the timing, it wasn't there. And I think he kept trying to force that way too much this year. And I don't know if that was coaching with Yursich or what, but I think at times he just got to be more in the feel of the game, the flow of the game. And he knows his receiver's not breaking right there, right then. you can wait that extra half second. He's got to learn to take a hit too. I mean, stand in the pocket the extra half second, deliver it where you need to, instead of putting the ball out there too early and resulting in incompletion.
There was some T. Frank did some stuff, and he showed some of the differences this week versus when Yurcich was here about who they were putting in certain routes. Like, so when Yurcich was here, they'd have Ty Warren run all the way across the field to run a 12-yard dig or whatever, right, and get past the other hash. And now they move that and they have KLS do it, right, and it gets people in the routes a lot quicker. So I do put a lot of that on Yurcich too, to not put people in the right positions. But yeah,
I'm just talking a lot about like those like comeback routes where it's one-on-one on the outside. There's so many times where Drew was throwing it 5 yards short of the receiver. That's just like, is that the receiver not knowing what the hell he's supposed to be doing, not running the right route, the right depth? Is that Drew where he's practicing with his quarterback coach 8 days a week and he's taking that 3-step drop and hitting it out there right away, and he's just translating that exactly to the game? Like, they got to be more in sync with that stuff, because that is, I can't remember how many in the Ohio State game, but there was countless where it's just he was throwing it before the receiver's even looking, and it just wasn't syncing at all.
So that's an interesting point. So if the wide receivers are not in the room and they're not doing the extra work and they're not it's working with him and getting the chemistry and blah, 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 all these things, that's what translates to the game too.
Exactly.
So,
and it's not high school anymore where Drew's played with those guys for 12 years growing up in the same town. Like, I mean, back to almost, I'm sure any of us could remember growing up in high school, you knew those kids forever. So you knew that like feeling with them. You knew what they're going to run. You knew where and all that stuff. Drew's first year starter, a lot of these guys he didn't really throw with last year, so he had a summer to do it. And Franklin mentioned it a ton. Did they do it? Did they not? Who knows? But it showed in games that it didn't translate well.
Yeah, and now you're looking at that maybe being a problem again next year, because we're talking about
a whole new room. Yeah,
a whole new room where 5 new guys might be in there. So, well, there are going to be at least 4. They have 3-4 freshman receivers committed. So. Yeah, so you're talking about at least a handful already, and that's before we get into transfers in and out. So, yeah, that there's a lot going on there. You brought up his quarterback coach. Is there any chance if Sider became the offensive coordinator, he would become the quarterback coach?
It's the same dude as Grunk, right?
Yeah, it's Grunkmeyer's the same guy. Whole Friday Night Lights thing here.
I don't know if Mendler would want it. I mean, he's probably getting low on these kids that he's training. Plus, he makes a different schedule now. He's not working 20 hours a day, so I don't know if he'd want it.
Yeah, no, that just made me think of it with the whole, because we used to joke about that.
Oh, completely,
yeah. The whole Friday Night Lights thing with JD McCoy or whatever.
Literally.
But it's funny, you see him putting out the same videos of Grunk throwing the same way that Aller was, and it's like, oh my god, against nobody, he looks perfect. But
I mean, I will say, if you watch some of those videos, Drew 1000% takes everything that guy teaches and puts it into game stuff. Like, there's times where he's throwing off that like skip, like stepping up stuff, and it's definitely a way to generate power, like or you're supposed to like transfer your weight and shit with it. So, but it's just he's almost overemphasizing it at times, it seems like. And I think that's messing him up. And I think it's a lot like he's doing drill work in a game and it's completely different shit.
Yeah.
Like, he's just got to play loose. You saw that last game he played loose. You saw that when he hit that deep pass to Amari and how loose he looked with it. And
I should have looked up depth of target and all that stuff for this one, because I bet
it was definitely deeper. Just from the eye test, I could tell you it was incredibly deep.
It looked like a fucking competent offense. We didn't like fucking some guy from South Park was calling the offense.
Timmy from South Park.
Yeah, literally.
Sarcastic ball. But just from the eye test, you could tell it was deeper. But we'll see what it looks like in the bowl game, and also if it's not Sider, if they have the new coordinator by then, because I know they had Diaz before the bowl game that year. Obviously, the year Yurcich came in, they didn't go to a bowl game. They had Moorhead before the bowl game, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they did. Shiraka was at the Cotton Bowl too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So,
the hire's going to come in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So history says that Penn State will have the coordinator before the bowl game. And then, honestly, we didn't really talk about this. There's still the threat that Manny Diaz isn't here next year. And
let's save that for next week, because we're all going to
because
That's the most I think that's about the most important thing though that they can
yeah,
have.
If we want any hope of doing well next year, we need him to stay.
yeah. That's
I was looking at it, and we were talking about that 5-game stretch and how difficult it's going to be. I think Ohio State's going to be awesome next year. I think Michigan ought to take a pretty big step back. They're losing.
we don't play them though.
Just in the
Yeah.
conference overall, though. I think they're going to lose a lot. USC is obviously going to lose a lot. UCLA kind of sucks, and Washington probably will lose a lot. I'm sure Penix can come back if he wanted to, but that.
I don't think he can. I think he's out.
Okay, that's good.
There's so many quality quarterbacks in the portal already, though, and I know Washington's going to get one. Oregon's probably going to get one, and I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State got one.
Who's the dude? State dude or whatever, right?
Does the Big Ten announce how they're doing the Big Ten championship yet?
No.
It's just got to be the top 2, right? No
yeah, but I mean, there's 18 teams. You're telling me there's going to be 2 clear top 2 teams?
75.
You don't play everyone, so you can't even really use tiebreaker.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to go.
But I think they're going to be as good. they're going to be 10-2 at least. They will make the playoff next year.
Yeah, but I want a home playoff game.
That's hard because you got to be at least
you got to be 5-8.
5-8, yeah. So they would not have it this year if that was the case.
Well, they could.
No, there's too much ahead of them.
If Florida State, just devil's advocate, they got to move up 2 spots. So say Florida State loses,
they'll still be ahead of us at 12.
I think they'd fall back just because they
their quarterback. Yeah, I guess.
So there's 1, and then Bama loses.
No, I think Bama would still be ahead of us.
You think Bama would only fall?
I think 11-2 Bama is going to be ahead of 10-2 Penn State because they're Bama's second loss to be in the title.
Yeah, that's true.
Championship game.
Interesting. I don't worry about that next year, honestly. Yeah. But I forget who someone said this to me at the bar before Thanksgiving last week. But they're like, James Franklin's the safest driver in the world because he's always at 10-2. And I was like,
that's pretty funny.
It's a James Franklin special, 10-2.
Yeah. So I forget who the hell said that to me, but I was dying. But
the West Virginia game next year will be very telling because they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, that's also not a lock, I don't think, by any means. No, because it's there. 1, it's there. 2, we have no idea what the hell Penn State's going to look like. And 3, West Virginia had they win 8 games, 7 games, something like that, and there are a lot of young players too. So that game's gonna be a little interesting too. So
West Virginia is that fluke Hail Mary against Houston away from being 9-3. So
yeah,
and they lost to Penn State. They got destroyed by Oklahoma. And what's their other? They must have lost. They lost to Texas.
No, they didn't play Texas. They play. It was.
They got kind of like upset, I think.
Oklahoma State. They lost it.
Yeah.
OK State, Oklahoma, Houston, and Penn State.
Oh, yeah, there you go. 48-34.
Yeah, so pretty much the Hail Mary doesn't happen. Their losses are to 3 top 20 teams, 3 top 18 teams. Yeah,
with their quarterback missing for like 7 games, 8 games, something like that.
Yeah, so that's another one to keep an eye out. But
so
we'll worry about that in August. I don't want to worry about that right now. I have enough to worry about.
Like what? What, you got to wait to see what bowl we go to, and that's it, right? There's nothing.
Yeah.
I got to worry about my liver with the way this season went.
Yeah.
It don't matter, man. Like, life goes on. Who cares? Nothing you can do about it. Like, it's so funny to me. This we can end, but when people post like, "Oh, this is unacceptable," or "Heads need to roll," like, dude, you're some dude on Twitter who has like 200 followers. What are you gonna do? You have no power.
I sent Alex a picture like last week, and I was like, I forget what it said exactly, but it's something along the terms of, "Oh, I'm very upset today because some 19-year-olds on my favorite university score enough touchdowns. So now I'm going to sit in my basement and drink until I cry." And I'm like, this is way too accurate.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's good that it consumes your life, and it's also really bad when they lose. So you kind of live with it. But
hey, happy and crappy for the season though. Let's hear it. I'm going to go. My happy was the Ohio State away trip. Even though we lost, had a great time, did a lot of dumb shit, had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Crappy was, of course, 10-2 again.
Yeah. My happy part, going to the Michigan game, spent the whole day with my kid. Saw him get a little drunk, not too drunk.
Yeah.
Happy got to meet Alec, not
Yeah.
you though, you ass. So that's the crappy part is that you couldn't be bothered to show up to the tailgate.
I had 1 hour of sleep that night. I was up. I was hammered by like 9 a.m. I'm sorry.
Next year.
Well, while we're telling everyone off, Tyler, I guess you keep talking about the 1 hour sleep. Fuck Big Noon, is that in there too?
Oh God, Big Noon can eat my asshole.
Yeah, there you go.
Shit.
There we go. Yeah, they're on the list too. They're up there with Usage.
Yeah, crop this part of it.
Seven times this year. Noon.
Crop this part right here and send it directly to Fox Big Noon. You guys fucking suck. You ruined tailgating. You ruined my whole experience in Penn State football. Literally, fuck yourself.
Yeah.
The NBC though has been good. Like
NBC's been great.
Yeah. No, happy. Honestly, the first drive of the year when they came out and hit the bomb,
God.
everyone I was
in. Right away.
That's kind of like when Saquon returned the opening kick against Ohio State.
Yeah.
I was in. I was like, oh, Natty Heisman. That's where I was with that play too. I was like, Natty Heisman. Yeah.
That's
the entire
because
the entire Ohio State game was crappy. Just because like they couldn't do anything, even though they were only like a score away. It felt like it was eight scores away. They were down by 56.
It never felt like they had a good chance after they called back that Jacobs touchdown.
Yeah, no, that's when I knew it was done because like they went right down and scored then, and I was like,
no, they didn't. It was like 2 more penalties that we had for them to score. Like it.
Yeah, but they got what they got the sportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh well.
Rough.
It's been real. I guess we'll talk again next week and talk about the bowl matchup.
Yeah, and
maybe together by then and not be so pissed off at usage, but probably not.
It's fine. He's out of your life, man. Like,
fuck that guy.
I do feel a little fooled by him because like the way they went about it, where they just threw Shiraka aside and they were like, this is the guy. This is the guy. And I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, if you're telling me that, like you're firing a guy, you're buying out a guy, you're paying $1.5 million for a guy you're just gonna pay over 2 or whatever it was.
The new hire OC, and you see all these stats. No one realizes how bad that 2021 offense was. I completely forgot about it because that season is just like that offense was abysmal to every number out there.
The Shiraka offense
wasn't Sean the leading rusher?
Probably.
I think he was
with like broken ribs.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think Shiraka got our super raw deal. Like he kind of got screwed in the.
I don't think it was great, but yeah, I mean, he did. He got fucked.
Yeah, he did.
If we had him, honestly, like they held the ball for like 35 minutes a game, 36 minutes a game. The defense would have done its thing. They would have never given up more than like 10 points. I think they would. Oh well.
Yeah.
Now he's at Rutgers though, so
I know. Well, he went to Minnesota for a bit first. Yeah. Such is life.
Yeah. Oh well. Well, that's enough of this.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
That was good.
Yeah, we'll come back next week and complain some more, but we'll see you then.